Come one, come all. For today, I'm going to tell you about the kind bot of Kenshi. For this was the story of HB027, a bot designed near the end of times when bot creation was still possible on the moon of Kenshi. The HB series was designed to be mass-produced. Unable to do any harm to conscious beings, its intended purpose was to increase food production and provide basic medical assistance. But for unknown reasons, only the prototype 027 of the HB series was created, and even that one was put into long-term storage. Now, our story started when HB027 was activated. HB awakened, covered in sand and missing an arm. Its abilities had been eroded to nearly nothing. While it was reactivating itself in a world it didn't quite recognize, pulling itself from the sand, it overheard a few things, all of which seemed nonsensical. Nonetheless, it knew it had to get up and complete its duty. For now, it needed to rebuild its capabilities. As such, it made itself some goals. 1. Acquire bandages and repair kits, to heal others as well as itself. 2. Obtain a replacement arm. 3. Purchase clothes as to blend in with the populace. And 4. Find a good city to start a temporary base in. Based on what little information it did have, it chose to go to a nearby city called Shobatai. On its way to Shobatai, it was found by some hostile members of the moon. Its atrophied legs made it so slow it was able to be harmed even while running away. But after all this time, the code that didn't allow it to fight back had not faded at all. Once reaching Shobatai, the hostiles were engaged by the city guard. Even though the ne'er-do-wells did damage to it, HB had to fulfill its duty, and gave aid to them. But as HB had nothing, it took their weapons as down payment to buy bandages to heal them with. It also chose to take any first aid supplies it found on them as part of their payment. Thanks to its hard work, it was able to save all but one of them, who was sadly too far gone to be saved. Realizing that it needed a lot more money to achieve all its goals, it decided to work a copper mine near the city. While working the copper mine, it made sure to keep an eye out in order to assist anyone that needed it. After mining for some time, it ran into a curious creature that called itself a hiver. Oddly enough, it seemed to be selling cheap bot parts. After the purchase of a replacement arm, HB continued mining to acquire the necessary capital. However, spending this much time by the city showed how cruel the people of this moon had become. The city guard, in their iron-fisted zeal to keep the quiet, but not necessarily the peace, attacked all who opposed them, even going far as to kill juvenile animals. Though they too healed injured people like HB, it seemed as if they were doing it with ill intent towards those they healed. All the while, they didn't care much about the lives of the animals, and while HB tried its best to help them, many died from their injuries. After harvesting the corpses of the animals, HB found an escaped slave that seemed stuck and confused. So HB carried the slave far from the city, and let them go with some food to help them on their journey to freedom. After selling off all it had scavenged, it finally earned enough to buy a robotic repair kit, and was able to repair the injuries it had sustained until then. It decided that now was a good time to move on from Shobatai, as it saw this was not a place where it wanted to build a base. So it chose to see if things were different in the nearby city of Stout. Unluckily for HB, on its way to Stout, it ran into a slave hunter. A vile being, the slave hunter did not care that HB was not an escaped slave, but relished in the idea of selling HB after incapacitating. Both were surprised when they ran into a pair of skimmers in front of a city that was not on HB's map. Luckily for both of them, the city guard rushed out to attack the skimmers. But when HB reached the gates, what it found confused and then disgusted it. It was a large open-pit mine run by slave labor. Angered by what it saw, and deeming the location too wretched to stay in, even a moment longer than necessary, after scavenging the skimmers, it decided to continue on. Once reaching the city of Stout, it was able to sell the claws of the skimmers. Now finally having enough to be able to purchase clothes, it bought the cheapest clothes possible. It judged the city as quite similar to Shobatai, but with a more unpleasant feeling, as there was a slave camp nearby. So with a pair of rotting jeans and a dusty old gi, it continued on its journey towards the capital of the United Cities, Heft. Luckily enough, through the last few days of travel, HB had regained enough running ability to be able to run away from some hostiles without taking damage. As it reached Heft, it decided it needed to buy a backpack, as it had little storage space remaining. But since it was not flush with coin, it decided to take the cheapest option available. While HB inspected the city, it came to the conclusion that Heft also did not seem like a good place for it to settle. It looked like a distilled version of the United Cities it's seen so far. An unjust land where the weak were given no kindness and treated without respect, while the mighty stood as if superior to all others. HB had grown weary of the governance of the United Cities. But as it exited the city walls, it found sand ninjas who were injured after a fight with a skimmer. After HB did its duty and healed them, the sand ninjas chose to attack, but this no longer surprised HB, as it had learned by now that in these days on this moon, kindness was treated as weakness, and weakness was expected to be exploited. HB needed no more reason to move on from Heft and the United Cities. Nonetheless, it had calculated that it should go see Bark as well, to see if it was any different. But what HB did not know was the path from Heft to Bark was filled with skimmers. While HB could avoid skimmers now, it would have gone against its programming to ignore all those who were injured by them. It seemed that many a fool had taken this path, and no matter how many times HB healed them, they continually got up to fight the unending legions of skimmers. Realizing that it was futile, HB decided to at least rescue one of the injured parties and take them back to Heft. After laying them down so they could rest and recuperate, HB went off to sell all its scavenged items. HB decided that it needed to acquire more information about this barbaric society. It started by buying a few books and a few maps. It continued to numbly do its duty, going to the bar to acquire food for its injured patient so they would have something to eat when they awakened. Only to then overhear barfolk telling tall tales about a skeleton called Tin Fist, some story they must have made up to delude themselves. But HB did not have time for their stories. It still had to go to Bark to see if it was any different. On its way, it ran into another slave hunter, as it seemed this desert was covered in these vulgar people. Though HB was now quick enough that they could no longer harm it, so HB continued on its long trip to Bark. Only now did it realize how fast it was truly running, and how far it had run. It had only been a few days since it was reactivated, and it had already achieved so much. It had rebuilt itself from nothing, to where now, able to do whatever it truly needed to do. It had already helped so many people, and wondered how many more it would still be able to help. While this world was quite a bit harsher than the world it was built for, HB could still do its duty here, and it did not need to become calloused by this world. It simply needed to do what it could do. So, with a renewed sense of duty, it ran towards Bark, ignoring all those who followed it and wished it harm. After finally reaching Bark, feeling more energized than it had ever been before, HB decided to bite the bullet and start a base here. So it bought all the necessary items needed for it to begin researching food production. Because of this, it was a little short on having enough money to buy a house. So to the mines it went, to earn that little bit more it needed so it could finally settle down and start its research. Though, while mining, it heard what sounded like a battle coming from the city, so it went to investigate, to see if anyone was in need of assistance. What it found surprised it. It was pandemonium. Everyone was fighting everyone. They seemed to be having an all-out brawl between the city, the slavers, the nomads, and the Hiver caravan. It truly was pandemonium, and HB was confused. But as always, its duty had not changed, and it would give aid to all those who needed it. And so it healed all that it found in its path through all the noise and confusion of this unrelenting battle. And as always, it took payment from all those it healed. Just as it had been right for it to heal others, it was right to receive compensation so that it could continue doing its duty. At least that's how it was in the old Kenshi. Except this time, when looking to buy more healing supplies, it realized there was a warrant out for its arrest and enslavement. What HB did not grasp was that the noble slave trader that it had saved from certain death had taken offense to HB. They had taken offense to the fact that it had touched them. They had taken offense to the fact that an inferior being had dared to take payment from it. For this noble did not wish to pay the one who had healed them, the one who had prevented their death. Instead, they wished to capture and turn the one who had saved them into an item to be sold.